Alright, all you music makers, video game players, and entertainers from all around the world, welcome to the 562nd edition of Music Village. I am your host from the East Coast, DJ Smokey, bringing you the best from the North, South, East, and West that the world of music and games has to offer, and seeing the fact that we are here to bring some sunshine to your rainy day parade, we might as well waste no time and explain to you guys what's going to happen on this very special April Showers edition of Music Village. Because we kick things off with a very special Indy bicycle edition of the Music Village CD review, and apparently according to Colin and Maestro, this bike is motorized, just as a heads up. Also, besides that, we go ahead and check out some games from a planet far away from here and from the Steam Machine alike for another edition of the Friday Night Greenlight. Then we take things from green to a cyan-esque like color according to Carl and the Maestro that may cause blight for a very special Catacomb Infinity Fighting edition of the DJ Smokey's True Video Game Stories. And according to Carl and the Maestro, how long did it take you to figure out what was wrong? A long time, and you'll figure it out during the story. Next up on the plate, we find out what you independent artists got planned for this weekend for another edition of the Indy for the weekend, which is me giving you guys local concert information from local artists performing in a local area live near you. Then finally, last but not least, and hopefully before we have to get the canoe out from all the rain, we wrap up this show yet another edition of the Up to Speed News, which is me giving you guys news stories from this week from, you guessed it, all around the world. I guess with that said, I might as well tell Carl and Maestro to kick up the beats, crank out the tunes, and most importantly, get rid of that Morton Salt raincoat kit. We don't need it just yet, because it's time for us to bring some fun and delight on your Friday afternoon/night. Only here, right here on Music Village. So let's get this show started, folks. Alright, all you music lovers, makers, and everybody else out there fighting rain, welcome back to Music Village. And according to Carl and the Maestro, we decided to start the show off with a song by the Orange County Deathmarch of So Fresh and So Clean. And in future, we'll mention an album from them as well, too. And speaking of mentioning albums to kick off shows, folks, I think it's time for us to go into another edition of the Music Village album review, or CD review. The name is still a work in progress. But either way you look at it, folks, the album we have up on the plate for this week is none other than Motorbike with their said album of Kick It Over. And like all albums that we review around here, folks, we review it in only but 4 ways. Where did we get and find this said album? What was our favorite songs a part of the said album? How does this album make us feel? And do we recommend this album to you, the fans at home? And yeah, when we usually say all these things, you obviously know the answer to just about all of them. But like we say all the time around here, the journey to the destination is always an exciting one. Now, we kick things off with where in the world we were able to find this said album. Well, This album was brought to our attention when we realized we had a Bandcamp page and we were recommended this album from the algorithms, so to speak. And once we saw the album and listened to a couple of the tunes, we said, yeah, we gotta have this a part of the show. And after talking with Carl and the Maestro to try to have this album a part of the show, we said, hold on, wait a second. We need to talk to the band first and see if we can be able to play it. And we managed to get in touch with one of the bandmates who found out about the show and said, hey, cool, nice, you're gonna review the album? Cool. And I would tell them that we'll be able to review it just a week or 15 days before their big performance in Cincinnati at the Northside Tavern with beef. And hopefully broccoli is included, but Carl and the Maestro said just get to the album review. And yeah, that's where we were able to find this said album, and the fact that they were able to contact us back, absolutely awesome. Now, with that said, what was a couple of our favorite songs a part of this said album? Well, for starters, one of our favorite songs would have to be Cold Sweat, Western Front, and especially Scrap Heap. Definitely a couple of our favorite songs a part of this said album, even though we wish we could say all, but we had to pick 3 according to Carl and the Maestro just to make it fair, which is average. I get it. And when I close my eyes while listening into this album automatically brings me back to the days when I used to play the PS1 skateboarding games that didn't have anything to do with Tony Hawk, but a couple of those indie skating games that I used to play, like Thrasher Skate and Destroy, where I would skate around the skate park trying to learn a brand new trick without trying to break my arm, leg, or, pelvic bone in the process. Another way I can possibly describe this album, just like the album cover they have of a guy trying to start up the motorcycle, it definitely reminds me of somebody sitting outside during a hot summer day, listening to some tunes, cranking it up, and trying to crank the engine on the bike and turn it over, or in this case, and no pun intended, kick it over so they can go on one big summer adventure like no other. Yeah, best way to describe it. Definitely is. And seeing the fact that we don't know how to review albums along the lines of Rolling Stones or any of those other famous album reviewers that you know of out there, we say this. If you guys want to go ahead and check out an album featuring a couple of hard-rocking guys from Cincinnati bringing music to around the world to help you get on that next road trip or get through a rainy day like the one we're in now, then I recommend you go out there and cop that disc. Or head on over to their Bandcamp page known as Motorbike to check out this album, plus their debut album that was released on the said site as well too. Yeah, definitely recommend listening to these guys because they're absolutely awesome. And with that said, folks, and speaking of listening to these guys, I think we played their song next. And one of my favorites too, none other than Western Front, that's by the band Motorbike off their brand new album of Kick It Over. And for you Cincinnati fans out there, before we go any further, they do have a show planned for their said release album in the said Northside Tavern with beef on April 26th of 2025. So make sure you head over there and check it out. But until then, listen to these musical tunes and we'll be back right after this. So don't go away just yet, folks, and stay tuned. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Music Village. And a big good luck and congratulations to the boys from Cincinnati with the album of Kick It Over by Motorbike. And yeah, here's hoping in the next couple of weeks we can feature more albums a part of the show. And according to Carl and the Maestro looking on their phone and Rolodex, yeah, they've got some names lined up. Hopefully it's a lot of them. And speaking of a lot of things coming our way, folks, I think it's time for us to check out a couple of those games from a planet far away from here and from the steam machine alike for another edition of the Friday Night Greenlight. And the first game that we have up comes from the itch.io page of Plantasma Starfish. Apparently, according to Carl and the Maestro, it's Plasma Starfish. Nice name, by the way. With their said game of Pack. And this game automatically reminds me of, well, going to the airport in TSA. And the reason why I say that, folks, is the fact that you have to pack everything into this small suitcase definitely reminds me of that, with a little hint of Tetris in there as well, too. Well, for any of you who've ever been into an airport and had to deal with a TSA agent. Now, here's hoping in the near future for this set game that you can play against your friends to see which one of you are more suited to actually pack things up in for a airport run in the near future. Because I got a feeling I'm going to need help with that, according to Carl and the Maestro. Yeah, I bet. But besides air travel we may take during the summer, the next game that we have up comes from the itch.io page of Sir Tartus, or Sir Tartarus? Cool name either way, with their set game of Blood Bank. And this game automatically reminds me of a horrifying version of a Twilight Zone or Tales from the Dark Side version of Fern Gully. Yep, because anytime you cut down a tree and the tree starts bleeding all over the place and you run into a random cat that follows you around, yeah, definitely something more or less around the areas of Tales from the Dark Side, according to Carl and the Maestro, and I would have to agree. Now, here's hoping in the near future for this set game that not only do you get a chance to run for your life once that tree falls, because I got a feeling it's going to most likely come to life, but maybe, just maybe, something to defend yourself with other than the axe. And Carl and the Maestro said, why not the axe? Well, I got a feeling if that tree stands back up, grows more branches, and rips your arms limb from limb, you're gonna need something stronger than an axe to take it out, and as cruel as it sounds, hopefully a lighter to finish it off, because you know it's coming back to life. And Carl and the Maestro said, well, we're gonna get a couple of phone calls for that one, but hey, the tree's gonna come back to life, try to kill us, it's us or them. I'm just saying. But besides trying to fight killer trees in a game called Blood Bark, Not Blood Bank, the next game that we have up to continue with the horrifying moments of my life comes from the itch.io page of, and apparently according to Carl and the Maestro from the developers, D. Zeynep, Aaron Wise, and Adriano Silva with their set game of Bite-Sized Scares. And this game automatically reminds me of, I would have to say of the said anthology film known as Trick or Treat. That's exactly what it reminds me of, you know, minus the werewolves and the other creepy zombie-like creatures. Now, speaking of those said Markland beasts, here's hoping, just in case I'm wrong, you have something to defend yourself with when you run into them in this game, because I got a feeling you're gonna need something to help you out. And apparently, according to Carl and the Maestro, the only thing you have to help you out is some snacks and a magnifying glass. Also, you can zoom in as they rip you apart and have some snacks along the way before you die. Oh, cool. That helps out a lot. But besides looking for some form of help out of the Twilight Zone we've entered, the next game that we have up comes from the developers Peplosoft with their set game of Fubuki Zero In on Hollow Earth, Hollow Live Alternative. And this game automatically reminds me of, would have to say Shinobi. Definitely reminds me of Shinobi with the characters that you fight in it. And here's hoping in the near future for this set game that you have some form of dangerous sword to take out what appears to be, by the looks of it, a minotaur of some type that you have to fight next to a giant gate. Because I got a feeling you're going to need it. You really are. And according to Call of the Maestro, you can use swords. Alright, I'm all for it. And the next game that we have up, besides using swords to take out minotaurs, which sort of reminds me of something from Champions of Noraz, comes from the developers Purple Door Studios with their set game of The Magic Inn. And this game automatically reminds me of, I would have to say this game reminds me of a wee bit of My Nite in Me. Yeah, definitely reminds me of My Nite in Me with a little hint of Wizard 101 in there as well too. Now, here's hoping in the near future for this set game that not only do you get a chance to somehow conjure up something that can help you in the kitchen, but maybe, just maybe, have a magical apprentice or a sorcerer's apprentice help you out to keep the place maintained just in case Merlin comes along to criticize the food. And according to Call of the Maestro, I don't think that's going to be the case. Why is that? Merlin too important to come to the restaurant? Apparently, according to Call of the Maestro, he's currently fighting a monster that's going to try to attack the restaurant. Oh, right. And the next game that we have up, besides Merlin keeping himself busy, comes from the developers Soy Games with their set game of Bank Simulator. And this game automatically reminds me of Liberty City, or should I say Grand Theft Auto 3, by the way this bank looks. It looks like it's in horrible condition. And according to Call of the Maestro, you have to revive a bankrupt bank and try to bring it to life. Okay, so here's hoping in the near future for this set game, as you try to fix this bank up, that you can hire some security, get a better vault, and hopefully not get robbed within the next 15 weeks. Because I got a feeling that's when the loan of that one guy gets paid out. And apparently, according to Call of the Maestro, the loan you have to pay back, it has to be paid off by the end of the month, so it's 30 days. Okay. And the last but not least game that we have up for this week comes from the developers V12 Studios with their set game of Car Service Together. And this game automatically reminds me of one of those speed shows that you would see for one of the garage shows they would have. I think it was called 4x4 Motors in the morning. Either way you look at it, that's what this reminds me of, with a little hint of the car shop mods that they would have in the world of Grand Theft Auto Online. Now, here's hoping in the near future that not only you get a chance to play with your friends, and according to Call of the Maestro you can, but maybe, just maybe, a chance to test out those cars after you're done modding them, fixing them, and souping them up. And according to Call of the Maestro, you can actually test the cars out afterwards, but you gotta be careful who drives it. Yeah, so me driving it after it's all souped up is out of the question. I can see that. And if you guys want to go ahead and check out any other cool games that are still coming in from a planet far away from here, yet close enough to be beamed into your homes in less than 24 hours, then you can go ahead and head on over to the Free Game Planet page, only known as freegameplanet.com, and just check out a whole bunch of games that are just, according to Call of the Maestro, whether they be creepy, weird, strange, frightening, awesome, or terrifying, are better known around here as Out of This World. And if you also want to go ahead and check out any other cool games that are still coming through the Steam machine via the cargo ship, cargo plane, or even subterranean train that is currently rumbling beneath your toes, then you can head on over to the store.steampower page, only known as store.steampower.com, and click ever so lightly on that upcoming button while looking out for a jack-in-the-box while you hit that Indy button to check out a whole bunch of games as you wind up a box that'll have a couple of cool ones pop up on you, almost like this Jack out of this Jack-in-the-Box, which for some strange reason has something in its head up high in my face. Are you guys serious? Apparently they are. Apparently they are. And with that said, folks, I think it's time for us to head back to that music as we go clean up. And when we return, we'll be back with yet another new DJ Smokey's True Video Game Stories right after this. So don't go anywhere or wear your horns out in traffic just yet, folks. And stay tuned. Alright, all you video gamers, welcome to yet another Blight Cycle Catacomb Infinity Fighting Edition of the DJ Smokey's True Video Game Stories. And with a title like that, we decided to go with the game none other than Dragon Age Veilguard. And I guess without any further ado, I think it's time for us to grab whatever weapon we can grab from out of the Infinity Lighthouse and see if we can take it to the Blight to make things right as we get ready to paint the picture. All right. This video game story began approximately 3 weeks ago when I was finally able to make it to the next city over to do a mission called Cornered in the Catacombs. And during that said mission, my mission was not only to try to take out the Blight, but the creatures that were down there plotting another plot against the Guard of the Veil. And the people I decided to take with me that I had thus far would not only be Nev, but Derwin as well too. And his helpful, trusty companion of a griffin that sort of looked like a cat for some strange reason. But outside of the looks and the battle stances that they would do during this said combat sequence, I would be able to bring my magical powers to the forefront by not only using some crazy forms of magic that I haven't seen in a game in a long time, not only being able to combine freezing magic, but also ice magic into the mix as well too, to not only render the creatures that tried to come after us, frozen in place, but also would be able to take their health as well too, and combine the powers with the other followers I had to cause some magical explosion that would cause this orange diamond cube-like structure to show up, and for it to just glow, beam, and explode, taking them out left and right. Now, while I was fighting these creatures and doing all these cool attacks, even using a special magical dagger and orb that tried to get in close to really take it to them, I noticed something was off. I was fighting all these creatures, but they just kept coming back. I mean, regularly they would just stop spawning after a while, but 5 minutes into this fight, and after taking out well over 13, maybe 20 of these enemies, I would say, wait a minute, something's wrong. Something's not really adding up in this picture. I don't know, I can't put my finger on it, but something really isn't right around here. So I would just keep fighting these creatures thinking, okay, well, there's gotta be a limit to these things. There's gotta be a limit for me to take on all these creatures, and I can just go to the next level, or just some giant boss is gonna show up to be the ultimate be-all end-all. But that wasn't the case. It was still these same small blight-like creatures that were just fighting around me, just one right after the other, for me to realize, I wonder if there's something I'm supposed to take out around here. I don't see anything. I don't see anything on the walls. I don't see anything on the ground. There's nothing amiss around here until I decided to look up into the upper left-hand corner of the map and realized that there was this giant ball that was up there that I had to take out. And I said, wait a minute. That's the blight ball I'm supposed to take out for the enemies, or for a door to at least open. I wonder if that'll solve my problems. The second I took the thing out, next thing I know, boom, the door would open and the enemies would stop coming after me. And I would say, oh, thank God that's over. But after fighting all those enemies, how much experience you think I would get? 300? 400? 500? After fighting well over, and according to Call of the Maestro was their head counting, I fought well over 50 enemies, and after 10 long minutes of taking them all out, the only amount of experience they would give me on the top of the screen would be a mere 25%. For me to say, are you kidding me? You really? 25 experience for taking out all those enemies? You know what? While you're at it, on the top of that screen, why don't you put "haha sucker" up there too? That's to really get in my nerves while you're at it. And after I would have to deal with that, I said the next enemies I run into is definitely gonna get it. I promise you that. Because one ability I forgot to mention that I would have, that I would keep in my back pocket only for bosses, would be this ultimate ability that allows me to turn into some giant oversized lich of sorts, taking up the energy of all the people around me, leading into some giant oversized explosion that would ultimately kill everything on the map, or at least take them down a peg or two. So I didn't care what enemy was in that next room over. After I had to deal with that, I would activate it. Watch as I would take the health from all of these different people who were there trying to swipe at me left and right, only for it to explode and for at least half of them to go down, but the rest of them to be finished off thanks to the giant oversized griffin, and of course, thanks to none other than Nev using her ice-like powers in the best way she knew how. And after that mission was over, that would be the last time I would ever go back to Docktown for missions in the catacombs, because I would think I'd get stuck in some other form of time loop for me to take 15 minutes to figure my way out of it. Yeesh. And I guess with that said, folks, wraps it up for another Infinity Catacomb Fighting Blight edition of the DJ Smokey's True Video Game Stories. And with that, we'll be back with more right after this. So stay tuned. Right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Music Village. And yeah, about that prior video game story, to this day, we still haven't been back there at all. No, not even in the least bit have been back to those catacombs. Even though we got Tosh and could probably burn them asunder, yeah, we still haven't been back to those catacombs. Probably never will. The end. But besides that anticlimactic ending, according to Call of the Maestro, I think it's time for us to go into one of my favorite parts of the show. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, none other than the Indy for the weekend, which is me giving you guys local concert information from local artists performing in a local area live near you. And we kick things off with none other than Friday, April 11th. And the first band that we have up is Just Jeff, who's going to be performing at the Tomasello Winery Tasting Room in Cranford, New Jersey at 6 p.m. Stu Hooten, is going to be performing at the Simply Greek Restaurant and Bar in Long Branch, New Jersey at 7 p.m. And according to Colin, my show, actually at 6. Oh, all right. Anyway, next band we have up is Pam McCoy, who's going to be performing at the Driftwood Beach Club Tiki Bar in Seabright, New Jersey at 6 p.m. All That Rocks is going to be performing at the MJ in Long Branch, New Jersey at 7 p.m. Gary Arias is going to be performing at the MCQ's Pub in Lake Zeynep in Newton, New Jersey at 7 p.m. Touch of Grey is going to be performing at the Williams Center for the Arts in Rutherford, New Jersey at 8 p.m. Chuck Schubert and Company is going to be performing at the Tipson's Tavern in Phillipsburg, New Jersey at 8 p.m. Randy Barnett and the Second Chance Blues Band is going to be performing at the Firewater Saloon in Atlantic City, New Jersey at 9 p.m. Dave Fields is going to be performing at the Great Notch Inn in Little Falls, New Jersey at 9 p.m. And to finally wrap things up for Friday night, you could see Bob Lenzetti, who's going to be performing at the Red Bank in Red Bank, New Jersey at 8:30 p.m. And on Saturday, April 12th, you can see these following bands performing in a local area near you live. Stu Hooten is going to be performing at the Coffee Corral in Red Bank, New Jersey at 10 a.m. Kate and Paul is going to be performing at the Brook Hollow Winery in Columbia, New Jersey at 2 p.m. Samsara is going to be performing at the Mud House in Highland Park, New Jersey at 6 p.m. Lalicia is going to be performing at the Public House Tavern and Inn in Chester, New Jersey at 6 p.m. You can also see Russell Norkovic, who's going to be performing at the Under the Moon Cafe in Lambertville, New Jersey at 6 p.m. Stu Hooten is going to be performing at the MJ's in Middletown, New Jersey at 7 p.m. The Tennessee Honey Band is going to be performing at the MCQ's in at the pub at Lake LeMape in Newton, New Jersey at 7 p.m. Sean Mars with Mars Needs Women is all going to be performing at the Broadway Bar and Grill in Point Pleasant Beach, New Jersey at 6:30 p.m. And to finally wrap things up for Saturday night, you could see the Random Test Reggae Band, who's going to be performing at the Gemins Food and Drink in Red Bank, New Jersey at 9 p.m. And on Sunday, April 14th, and according to Colin to my show, that's actually the 13th, you could see these following bands performing in a local area near you live. Marty Jintz is going to be performing at the Jim Correll or the Town Crier Cafe in Beacon, New York at 11:30 a.m. And according to Colin the Maestro, performing alongside her would be Jim Cornell and Mike LaRocco. Oh, nice. But alongside with them, you also have none other than Jim Sloan and Friends, who's going to be performing at the Red Brick Tavern in Conroe, Texas at 11:30 a.m. Mike McDevitt is going to be performing at the Flash in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania at 5 p.m. Lisa Morales is going to be performing at the Sam's Burger Joint in San Antonio, Texas at 5 p.m. Sean Chambers is going to be performing at the Alley in Sanford, Florida at 6 p.m. Ronnie Twist is going to be performing alongside with Scotty Austin, Peter Dante, and Danny Boone, who's all going to be performing at the Sherman Theater in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. At 6 p.m., Ryan Belansky is going to be performing at the Red Brick Tavern in Conroe, Texas. At 6:30 p.m., Blind Jive is going to be performing at the Masquerade in Atlantic City, Georgia. At 7 p.m., and yeah, according to Carl and the My Show typo on their part, that's actually Atlanta, Georgia. You sure it's not Atlantic City? Apparently, no, it's not. But ballpark errors aside, folks, next bands we've got up is Escape from the Zoo, Hans Gruber and the Hans Gruber and the Diehards. That is probably the best band name we've heard all year. Who's all going to be performing at the Brick by Brick in San Diego, California. At 7 p.m. Yeah, Carl and My Show, don't worry, I'm going to try to get them on the show next, too. Anyway, next band we have up is Trout Fishing in America, who's going to be performing at the Shallow Hill Music in Denver, Colorado. At 7 p.m. And to finally wrap things up for Sunday night, you can see Sunday Night Jazz Jam, who's going to be performing at the Mr. Peabody's in Encinitas, California. At 6 p.m. And on Monday, April 14th, you can see these following bands performing in a local area live near you. Magic Monday Gaming Night is going to be performing at the NCOM Cyber Hall in Norman, Oklahoma. At 4 p.m., Hector Guzman is going to be performing at the Luna Bob in South Padre Island, Texas. At 5 p.m., Ricky Ray Band is going to be performing at the Main Street Bistro Cabaret Piano Bar in Warrenville, New Jersey. At 6 p.m., and Carl and My Show said another ballpark error on their part with the teleprompter, because it's actually Goreville, California. Okay? Anyway, next band we have up is Guy Covington Live, who's going to be performing at the Aretha's Jazz Cafe in Detroit, Michigan. At 6 p.m., Ricky Ray Solo is going to be performing at the Main Street Station Bistro Cabaret Piano Bar in Warrenville, California. At 6:30 p.m., you can also see The Birthday Massacre with Essinger and Magic Wands. Nice band names. Is all going to be performing at the Brick by Brick in San Diego, California. At 7 p.m., Zach Johnson is going to be performing at the Red Brick Tavern in Conroe, Texas. At 7 p.m., Duo Over is going to be performing at the Laguna Bob in South Padre Island, Texas. At 8 p.m., you can also see, and completely out of order, but actually a little bit in order, the Origami Ghost. Nice band name. Is all going to be performing at the Sunset Tavern in Seattle, Washington. At 8 p.m. And to finally wrap things up for Monday night and for all the bands we're going to mention for this week, you can see the Garage Boys, who's going to be performing at the Fremont Street Experience in Las Vegas, Nevada at 10 p.m. If you guys want to go ahead and check out the complete list of bands that we couldn't list during this very broadcast, and trust me, folks, there were a lot of them, you can head on over to ReverbNation.com to check out the complete list of bands that we couldn't list during this very broadcast. And while you're over there, check out a couple of their cool tunes. Trust me, they're worth the listen. And like we say at the end of all of these skits, go out there, support your local artists, and see these guys perform live. And trust me, they'll love you for it. And I guess with that said, I think it's time for us to head back into that music and continue to listen into these diamonds in the rough. Only here, right here, on Music Village. So So don't get lost in that afternoon traffic just yet, folks, and stay tuned. And we're back with the afternoon show that's hopefully bringing sunshine to your rainy day parade, only known as Music Village. And according to Call of the Maestro, they said that the rain should clear up by later on tonight, but at the same time, this whole entire weekend is going to be rained out. Perfect. So should I get the canoe now or later? Apparently, according to Call of the Maestro, we should get it after the show's over. Yeah, man, I got a feeling we're going to have to dig in the closet to find that one. Ugh. But besides trying to dig into a closet to find a yellow canoe to make our way down Main Street, or whatever street name it may be, I'm looking at my watch right now. Oh, it's just about that time. It's the witching hour, which means it's time for us to be brought up to speed with news stories from this week from, you guessed it, all around the world. And wait for it, and in our first news story, and more or less movie anniversary news. For you fans out there who always wondered would they do something special for the 30-year anniversary of a Goofy movie? Well, gorsh, yes they would. And that's the best Goofy impersonation you're gonna get this week from me. Because the voices of not only Goofy but Max would hop into an old jalopy and share memories of this classic film. And at the same time would bring up some moments during the film of how to sound like the voices, and would even say that the fans does deserve a Powerline concert in the near future. Now, I agree with them. Here's hoping in the near future that actually goes down, that we will see the said group of Powerline actually performing a couple of songs. And apparently, according to Call of the Maestro, they would also see none other than L2L by Magnolia Park being performed on the punk album of A Whole New Sound. Nice! But if you guys and gals out there want to go ahead and check out a road trip that still stands the test of time to this very day, then you can go ahead and head on over to the YouTube page of one man only known as Destinee to check it out for yourselves. And at the same time, here's hoping they get the cast of Fern Gully together to celebrate the anniversary of that film in the near future too. But was that movie made by Disney? See, now we gotta go look that up in the future. But before we even do that, folks, in other news, and more or less news of the classic cover variety. For you fans out there who always wanted to hear a classic version of the Gene Wilder song of Pure Imagination, well, Postmodern Jukebox will be able to answer the call at home with none other than Tawanda singing the jazz version of this said song. And after we heard this song this past afternoon, we had to mention it a part of the show simply because of how beautiful it truly sounds, especially with the piano work in the background. So, I got a feeling in the near future we're gonna have to hear another classic song from a classic film from these guys, and I can't think of anything more than Pure Imagination from Willy Wonka, unless they do the Oompa Loompa song in a classic jazz form from the 1950s. In surfing style? Yeah, I can see that happening. And if you guys want to go ahead and check out this pure imagination of a reimagination of a classic song from a postmodern jukebox, then you can go ahead and head on over to the YouTube page of one man only known as Postmodern Jukebox to check it out for yourselves. And in other news, and more or less, what if music news scenario? I tried to say it the best way we could without laughing because this one, I got a feeling, is something so far off the spectrum, it's ridiculous. Because this week, Matt Glocky was met with the challenge of trying to come up with a what-if scenario if Korn wrote the classic song of Informer by Snow. And every single time I think of this song, I think of Jim Carrey doing the impersonation of Snow during that classic episode of Living Color, singing like Popeye the Sailor Man. So I can't take this song seriously anymore, thanks to him. But I got a feeling with the cover that Matt Glocky did, which was absolutely awesome, I got a feeling I'm going to start taking it serious. Now, here's hoping in the near future we can hear him do a disturbed version of the classic song from Vanilla Ice of Ice Ice Baby. That, or I guess the metal version of Too Cold. And Carl and the Maestro's looking a little bit confused. Yeah, Ice Cube came up, or more or less Vanilla Ice, I'm getting my ices mixed up. Vanilla Ice came up with a metal version of his song of Ice Ice Baby called Too Cold on a metal album he released after all the stuff that happened with the whole thing between him, David Bowie, and Queen for stealing the background music of the song to make the song. Yeah, and they're still confused. But nevertheless, folks, if you guys and gals out there want to go ahead and check out a cool metal version, or a metal version of a classic song from Snow, then you can go ahead and head on over to the YouTube page of one man only known as Matt Glocky to check it out for yourselves. And in other news, and yes, more music cover news or what if scenario news, for you fans out there who always wanted to hear Coldplay's Viva La Vida in the style of Queen, well, none other than Anthony Vincent would answer the call for this week, performing a very beautiful version of the song. And the title he would decide to go with for this week, apparently according to Carl and the Maestro, it would be, I don't know. Apparently, Keep Passing the Open Windows would be the version of it, what they would call it. But either way you look at it, folks, I'm hoping in the near future he could do a Coldplay version of I'm in Love with My Car. Not only so we can wrap up the show with it with a different version of the song, but also to challenge his musical skills. And if you guys want to go ahead and check out his musical skills for this week for yourselves, then you can go ahead and head on over to the YouTube page of one man only known as 10 Second Songs to check it out for yourselves. And I guess with that last regular news story out of the way, folks, you guys at home know what time it is. No, Carl into my show, it's not time for us to get that canoe out of the closet just yet. It's time for us to go into another edition of... And back up for this one, folks, because it's going to be a loud one. Just advising you at home. Back far enough? Okay, good. Let's do this. Video game news. Man, I love doing that. And not to mention probably another one of my favorite parts of the show. But my silliness aside, folks, in our first video game news story. And an exciting news for you fans out there who always wanted to see a kill count for The Last of Us. Well, Zoran would be able to get on to the kill counting screen once again to bring us another video game kill count for the month. And the kill count would be, well, The Last of Us. And after checking out several of his other video game kill counts that he's released in the past, that's been absolutely hilarious and very informative at the same time. This one, I got a feeling, takes the cake, but it would be my second favorite one next to the one he's done for Resident Evil. That is still an all-time favorite, especially with the commercials that was featured a part of it as well, too. And if you guys want to go ahead and check out the kill count for this said game of The Last of Us, then you can go ahead and head on over to the YouTube page of one man only known as Destinee to check it out for yourselves. And in other video game news, and more or less extreme skateboarding news, and according to Carl and the Mice Show, they said snowboarding. I get it, I know, snowboarding news for you fans out there who always wanted to see somebody get tricky on a snowboard. Well, I have some good news for you. Because not only Ricochet and company would get alongside of MXM to pull off some SSX tricky-like tricks in a classic snowboarding game I never had a chance to play as a kid. And to this day, really did want to play it, but unfortunately didn't know many people who owned the Dreamcast or had the ability to actually get a hold of this game, because it was hard to get from Blockbuster. Trust me when I say this. But if you guys want to go ahead and check out all of the cool, tricky tricks that would be performed during this set game in the trickiest ways known possible, then you can go ahead and head on over to the said YouTube page of one man only known as AEW Games to check it out for yourself. And according to Carl and the Maestro, they're hoping for a said tournament for that game in the near future. Well, I got a feeling Ricochet, who can perform the best tricks, probably would win it all. Yeah, I got a feeling he's going to be the one who goes home with the gold for that game, too. And in other video game news, and more or less news for you fans out there of indie games. And Carl and the Maestro a little bit confused about that one, but trust me, this one's a good one. This one comes from the demo game that was released this past week for you fans out there who always wanted to play some form of crazy version of a shooting game that reminds you of Borderlands. Well, this one would be right up your alley, because now they've decided to release a game known as Metal Eden that's currently available for all systems across the board. And if we're able to get our hands on it before this weekend, we'll try to feature it a part of the Indie Radio Arcade. And the reason why in the world I say it reminds me of Borderlands is because some of the weapons that are featured in this game blows people to pieces. So yeah, definitely an awesome game in my book. You know, if I'm able to get my hands on it before this upcoming weekend. And if you guys want to go ahead and check out the cool footage or even download the demo for yourselves, then you can head on over to the Twitter page only known as of one person of Metal Eden to check it out for yourself. And in other video game news, and more or less news from the world of Grand Theft Auto Online. If you guys wanted to go back to the original apartment heist and get a little bit of extra cheese on top for it, well, this is the week for you. And Carl and the Maestro laughing in the background saying that you can get extra cheese with that, because outside of getting double the amount of money for all of the original OG heists, not only the Fleeca job, the Prison Break, the Humane Labs raid, the Series A funding, and the Pacific Standard job, but for any of you out there who are able to complete 2 heist finales this week, we'll be able to go home with an additional $100,000 for your said heisting careers. Nice. And alongside with that, folks, for you fans out there who also wanted a little extra money for delivering pizzas, and no, not like you would do in real life, but in this game, for a piece of this, now you can get an extra piece of cash to go along with it, double the amount of GTA dollars for that this week, as well as double the amount of money for Hasta La Vista, and also triple the amount of money for the RP Community Series races. And alongside with that, for you fans out there who always wanted to get a high-end apartment but really couldn't afford it, 30% off for all high apartment properties for this week. Nice! And along with those discounts, we got some others, because the Karen Karuma, 30% off. Armored, mind you. The Zaba, aka the moon vehicle we call, with the giant oversized wheels, 30% off. The Highway Insurgent pickup, 30% off. The Vapid Winky, 30% off. The Dubashi Vector, 30% off. The Mammoth Wadi, 30% off. The Dinka Kanjo SJ, 30% off. The Spitzer Neon, 30% off. The Dinka RT3000, 30% off. The Bravado Greenwood, 30% off. The Karen Boar, 30% off. The Visser Neo, 30% off. And finally, the Bravado Half Truck, possibly one of my favorite vehicles of all time in the world of Grand Theft Auto, 30% off. And the reason for that is because I was a big fan of Smuggler's Run and always wanted to own that vehicle in real life, but according to what a lot of people told me, you better have a heavy bank account and special permission to ride that on the road, because you'll scare the crap out of everybody. And we're lying. We're lying. But outside of that, folks, for you fans out there who always wanted an Ubermod Cypher for free, well, all you have to do is place in the top 5 for the Car Meet series for 2 consecutive days in a row to get the said vehicle along with the Fleesa Circuit livery. And the Lucky Wheel vehicle, as we almost tripped up on our words there, is going to be none other than the Karen Previan for this week. And if you guys and gals out there want to get your hands on any of these deals and vehicles and find out whatever else is coming down the tubes from the world of Rockstar, then you can go ahead and head on over to the socialclub.rockstargames page, only known as socialclub.rockstargames.com, under the Newswire section to check it out for yourselves. And I guess with that said, for this week, you've all officially been brought up. And hold on a second, folks. I got to get down with this group. Give me a sec. Right? These rain boots are kind of heavy, but it's heavy with the beat. And we're still in time. All right, that's enough of that, because you've been brought up to speed. And I guess with that said, I think it's time for us to head back into that music one more time. And when we return, we'll be back with the final segment for Music Village for this week, right after this. So don't go anywhere just yet, folks, and stay tuned. Well, ladies and gentlemen, seeing the fact that the even flow of traffic is starting to get heavy, the street lights just turned on, and most importantly, the rain is really starting to come down, we might as well bring Music Village for this week to an emphatic close. Or vamoose, as Carl and the Maestro would say. But don't worry, if you miss any of that afternoon or evening delight we were able to give you for this week, we got you covered. Because you can catch this show again one more time, all the time, on our SoundCloud, Facebook, Instagram, and Tumblr pages, still all named the same, only known as Music Village Radio under the hashtag MusicVillage562. And yes, call it a maestro before you think we forgot. For any of you out there who wants to catch all of the musical goodness we included for this show as well too, you can catch it again tomorrow afternoon at noon on Saturday, a part of our Live 365 page, only known as Music Village Radio. And yeah, for those wondering out there, 562 is the number we put on the side of the canoe just in case we get lost, because it's almost a direct link to the house with the amount of string we put on there, 562 feet. And Carl and the Maestro's asking me, why did we put string on it? Because it helps. It helps. Leave me alone. And if you guys want to figure out what crazy and zany things we still got prepared for this month of fools, like Carl and the Maestro thinking we're an absolute fool in this sailor's outfit before we jump in that canoe, then you can go ahead and check it out on our YouTube, Discord, and Twitter pages, still all named the same, only known as Videogame 012. Now, before we head out for the night, we would like to thank, as always, you the fans out there for listening in to another afternoon rain relief delight edition of Music Village. And if you guys and gals out there like what you heard, go out there and spread the word. You know what? Like Thomas Sanders singing in the rain. Yeah, you know, the PR department is telling me that's a terrible idea to do in this place with an umbrella, but I got an umbrella open now, so what you gonna do about it? And they just booked it. Come on, it's not gonna be that bad. But they still gave me the thumbs up before they left. And we would also like to thank you, the independent artists out there, for doing that musical goodness like you always do. And keep up the great work, guys. And here's hoping your music gets featured during this show and hopefully bring some sunshine to a rainy day. And yeah, why? Because we believe in you guys. That's why. We always will believe in you guys. And speaking of people we believe in to be a part of this show to bring some sunshine to your day, and yeah, we got a CVS receipt long list of names to thank. We would like to thank none other than the Orange County Deathmarch and CG Gate Citizens with their said song of a cover of So Fresh and So Clean, as well as thanking Motorbike with their said album of Kick It Over with the songs of Western Front and Cold Sweat that'll be wrapping things up for tonight. Natali Lyon with their said song of Gambling. Destinee Love with their song of I'll Be Single. Robert Dunbar with Love Is Here. Secret Agent with their song of The Spy That Who Never Was. Even Throwing Muses with their said song of Drugstore, Drastic. And finally, last but not least, none other than Tekno AXE with their said song of the Tekno AXE Boss Battle Loop 2 that was featured during this week's DJ Smokey's True Video Game Stories. Yikes, what a list of thank yous. That I got a feeling each week is gonna grow bigger and bigger, and we can't wait to say thank you to you all for it. And like always, guys, keep up the great work, and we can't wait to hear what you got coming down the tubes next. And finally, last but certainly not least, we would like to thank you, the independent gamers out there, for doing all those sweet, sweet video game hits and clips we had a chance to mention during this week's show. And seriously, guys, keep up the great work, and we can't wait to see what sort of cool games you got coming around the corner next, because seriously, you never know what show might be coming around the corner next that might need them. Hint, 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 hint. And I guess with everybody thanked, you guys out there, we go out. I'm DJ Smokey on behalf of Carl and the Maestro, saying, or should I say singing, I'm singing in the rain. Whoa! That was a terrible idea. But most importantly, when there's smoke, there's fire. And we'll see you guys next week for a very special Good Friday pre-WrestleMania edition of Music Village. But until then, folks, stay dry and good night, everybody.